Hello, welcome back. We are four struggling filmmakers. My name's Emma. Joined with me is Noah.
Hello.
Jimmy.
Hello.
And James.
Hello.
So we are gonna do recommendations, but I'm gonna kick us off because I have something that I saw. So I went to see A Quiet Place 2 at the cinema yesterday. Definitely recommend. Thought it was really good. Something a bit different. So I watched this Swedish short film just randomly. It's a non-fiction piece, and basically I think it was like they got 66 Swedes, like the Swedish public, not the vegetable. And they
I'm glad you clarified.
And they took them up to a 10-meter diving platform, and then basically the premise of the film was you have to jump off, and it was really interesting to like watch. It was only like 15 minutes. Was it even 15 minutes? I don't know, maybe a bit shorter than that, but the premise was to see how these like people responded to being at the top of a 10-meter platform, and like the social pressures of, is it harder to jump off the platform or climb back down?
The real question is, would you jump off a 10-meter board?
You see, that's the question. I think everyone would like to say, yes, I would. But I don't think I would, because when I used to be a lifeguard, we had a diving board session, and I jumped off the 1 meter springboard, and that was enough for me.
I watched a debut film. Some people may know these boys, the Coen brothers. Their debut film, Blood Simple. It is really good. It's really impressive debut, and it's almost like a very similar to No Country for Old Men, actually. Similar sort of villain in it, but he's not quite as scary as Javier Bardem. It's Emmett Walsh, I think, is the actor
From Blade Runner.
Yes, yeah, him.
Captain Bryant.
He's a scary Texan in it. But yeah, it's really good debut. I recommend.
Finishing up Vampire Week. I finished like tomorrow by the end of this episode, I think. And I watched one yesterday. It's by Jim Jarmusch, or Jarmusch. It's Only Lovers Left Alive, which is Tilda Swinton and Tom Hiddleston. And I absolutely loved it. I thought it was the most chill film I think I've ever watched.
I rewatched 1984's The Terminator.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'd only seen it twice. If I'm going to rewatch Terminator film, I rewatch Terminator 2, like every other person who's existed in life. But rewatching this time, I was like, this is as good as Terminator 2.
No, it is better than Terminator 2.
Ooh.
I will die on this hill. Terminator 1 is the better film.
I completely... Oh God, that was a bit cracky. I completely see where you're coming from. And there's certainly bits I like more. I think being a man versus machine film really gives it a lot of strength. And I think Sarah Connor develops probably more as a character in the film as well.
Nice little recommendations for our audience. But let's move into the main feature. What are we chit-chatting about this week?
This week, we are diving into, as James's background might suggest, sequels. But more importantly, sequels we would like to see. So those films out there that never got a sequel or never got the sequel they deserved, we're going to put that right today. We're going to talk a little bit about what we think would have been the perfect sequel to some of our favourite franchises and films.
I'm going to kick us off today with a sequel that some fans want, some fans don't. The director most definitely doesn't want, but the studio probably does. So, a complete mix. And I'm going to ask for a sequel to the 2010 success story that was Inception. So, Christopher Nolan, and it was Warner Brothers, I think, came up with this film, pitched it. Warner Brothers like, yes, made a lot of money, and that's why the studio would want another one. So basically, Inception is a science fiction based action film, obviously written and directed by Nolan, as we discussed. It stars everyone's favorite Leonardo DiCaprio. He's a professional thief who steals information by basically infiltrating his target's subconscious through their dreams. So they put them to sleep and then they hop in their dreams like, yo, I'm going to take that info. And basically, he's offered a chance to completely erase his criminal history by going in and doing this, like, is that one last job genre type, to go in, infiltrate this guy and plant a seed of an idea from someone else into this person. So it's the biggest job he's ever done. He has to go through multiple layers of the subconscious, all that good stuff. And then at the end we have his totem, which basically that all of them have their thing which tells them whether they're in reality or a dream. His is a spinny top, and when it falls he's in reality, and if it spins he's in a dream. He spins it, walks off, and then we never know. So it is left on a cliffhanger, which is normally, perfect for sequels.
I would argue that it's not a cliffhanger, but just ambiguous.
Okay, well,
personally,
what's the difference?
It's basically
What do
what
you mean, what's
cliffhanger
the
is.
difference? Ambiguous
There is
is
a
you're supposed
difference.
to know the answer, and cliffhanger is here's the next bit that you need to watch to know it.
Okay, well, yeah, I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah,
but-
Italian Job, that's a cliffhanger.
Thanks, Noah.
Well, either way, the ending is ambiguous and we never get a proper answer. I can see why Nolan and some fans wouldn't want a sequel and why some people would. However, I don't necessarily think a direct sequel continuing that story would be somewhat beneficial. I think there's several ways you could do a sequel. I think one way it could be, let's say Leonardo DiCaprio's character is in a dream, and then the film follows another lot of people coming in to rescue him. That's one way you could do it, or you could do it with a completely different set of characters, but using the world. So, Leonardo DiCaprio's character is doing whatever, he's had his criminal record erased, fine. But let's say one of the minor characters decides they want to continue this life of crime, and we follow that. So it's a sequel, but it's not, which is interesting because some fans have drawn parallels between Inception and Tenet, basically seeing it as a secret Inception 2. The main star in Tenet, John David Washington, basically says that he thinks that it is a secret sequel, but not a direct sequel, as we were discussing. He describes it as saying it's an in-law of Inception by marriage. So same sort of theme, same sort of world, but different, which I thought was an interesting thing, especially as a lot of fans do draw those two parallels. I thought it was quite cool that the main star was, drawing some parallels. And a direct sequel for Inception 2 was rumoured to be being filmed by Nolan back after Dark Knight. Dark Knight Rises. However, this was obviously false because we never got it. So I think it would be interesting, and I think the best way to do it would not be the direct sequel, but go the route with using the laws and this idea of a dream within a dream, because the subconscious is such an interesting topic to explore, and the idea of putting things in people's subconscious is really cool, and I think there's like an endless possibility to it.
I completely agree with what you're saying about like all the different ways that you could do it, and if I was in charge, I definitely would go with the completely new set of characters, completely new story, because the core concept of Inception is so cool and interesting. The idea of a dream heist is, you could do so many different things with that. And just limiting it to one film is fine for like a self-contained story, but if you want to do more things, I don't think if you use the same characters again.
Inception is a great standalone movie, and I think to use the same people, same characters would damage the reputation of the first one.
Maybe erasing memory.
Yeah, that's
What about
or create new Total Recall style and new memories.
what about a prequel sequel? So we get to see the guys,
And how it comes about. That's not a bad idea.
like maybe like the start, maybe, yeah.
It might explain
Something
things.
like that.
Yeah, it would probably make, because a lot of people are like, I don't know Inception, I don't get it. So it might make that like a bit better.
But then I guess if you wanted new characters, that doesn't really work.
No, because you could do it with completely new characters. It could be how Leonardo DiCaprio at no point in the film says, I'm the one who came up with this. So it could be something that someone else came up with, and then at the end they just have this one exchange, and then that's how they just tie it all together.
The interesting thing about Inception is that the film ends before we see anything of the aftermath of the Inception idea. It would be interesting if at the start of the film, whether it was the same guys, the same cast of characters, or a new cast, if at the start of the film they successfully perform Inception, but then the outcome of that is something really bad, and then the rest of the film is them, like you said about erasing it, trying to undo the damage they've done.
Because I definitely think a dream subconscious type thing benefits from a messed up script or non-traditional piece of script writing.
Yeah, going away from that 3-act structure and doing something fun with it, which Nolan's not afraid to do. I mean, look at Memento.
Or I've just come up with a cool idea myself, like literally just now. So what you could have two different teams who are working against each other to try and incept one person.
What, like in Tenet, when they have the red team and the blue team, and one team's going forwards in time, one team's going back in time?
Yeah, something along the lines of that, where one team is trying to incept one ideal and the other team is working against them to kind of employ the opposite, maybe.
Yeah, so I just thought, a take on because I'm trying to think, apart from the Batman trilogy, Nolan doesn't tend to do sequels to his like original pieces.
Oh, really?
So I thought that it would be interesting to see or to experiment with that, and I thought Inception was the perfect sort of example for that. Tell us what you think. Would you see an Inception 2, and who would you cast?
Thank you very much, Emma. So Inception was very much a brand new IP, but I'm going to talk about something that's a bit more pre-established. I'm going to talk about 2012's Dredd, directed by Pete Travis, or was it? Because apparently the screenwriter, who is Alex Garland, who you may know from Ex Machina, apparently he ended up directing much of the film. Certainly Carl Urban has come out and said that. So Dredd, what is Dredd? Well, Dredd is about Judge Dredd, not to be confused with the 1995 Judge Dredd film with Sylvester Stallone, which nearly ruined comic book movies in the 90s. Thank God for Blade, eh? Judge Dredd is a 2000 AD character in this futuristic version of what should be Britain, but in every film adaptation is never Britain, it's always America. In this totalitarian sort of futuristic state, he is a judge, a street judge, who has the power to, where he's judge, jury, and executioner. He sentences criminals on the spot and he executes them in this world overrun by crime.
I am the law.
I am the law. Yeah.
I can't stand his voice in it.
Made on I think $25 million budget. It made about $25 million at the cinema, and that's why we've not seen another one. It was a massive hit on home video. Unfortunately, it came out at the same time as a much more successful film with almost an identical plot called The Raid, which got a sequel and did much better performance-wise. The plot of Dredd, very simple. Big high-rise building, big high-rise apartment building full of criminals. Seasoned judge and Clint Eastwood impersonator Carl Urban, Judge Dredd, gets a new rookie who is psychic Cassandra Anderson, and basically he's trialing her for the day to see if she's got what it takes to be a judge. And they end up trapped in this high-rise apartment building by none other than a woman called Mama, who is played by Lena Headey from Game of Thrones, Cersei Lannister. And they've basically got to survive, and they've got to work this way up and out of this building. Very thin on plot, as you might expect. In terms of characterization, it is straight out of the 2000 AD comics. So if you were a fan of the comics, you generally absolutely loved it. Dredd never takes his helmet off. He's always scowling. He's gruff. He's exactly as he is in the comics. It's the perfect encapsulation. That's enough about Dredd 2012. Let's talk about the potential sequel. Now, I think there's two ways of going about this. And I think either way, now that we have this world, which was very well imagined, they got the tone right, they got the characters right, we need to do something with it. We need to do some story here. So I would say probably either take a great 2000 AD storyline with some of these iconic villains, probably Judge Death, who is... I'm not overly familiar with Judge Dredd comic book stuff. I think he's actually like Death himself, a judge. Ooh. So, a bit funky. And do a storyline with that. Or the other way of doing it would be to do the prequel route. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of origin stories if I think they're completely redundant. Spider-Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe worked really well without an origin story. We didn't need to see him become Spider-Man. Everybody knows Spider-Man. We know he gets bitten by a radioactive spider. We know great power comes with great responsibility. Fantastic. But where Judge Dredd certainly doesn't have as many films already. We've not seen this origin, and is very much more of a niche comic book character, particularly with foreign audiences. There's a reason these films never do well in America. It's because they don't know the character as well. An origin story would work really well. So I would propose adapting maybe like the Judge Dredd Year One storyline, where we're with Judge Dredd. What you should not do is see Judge Dredd before he becomes a judge, right? This character is deliberately mysterious. We know very little about his upbringing. Bits of it come through in the character and the storylines. We should not, mysteries are good right? Films, you don't need to know everything about somebody's backstory.
I was thinking, like, if you're really against having Carl Urban, mainly his voice, kind of affect the role, maybe Jimmy's idea of doing like an earlier version of Dredd will kind of fix that, because maybe he's not as gruff in the voice there. So maybe that could work. Like,
yeah, I don't necessarily think it's him as a person. I think it's the way he portrays the character. It's very I'm trying to think of the word. It's very
rough.
no, but it's very forced.
It's very one note.
Oh, okay.
I don't believe it as an acting piece. That's the issue.
Is Dredd an acting piece though?
Well, it's an acting job, so yeah.
That's bless you. That's the problem. I think the 2012 film realized very early on that you need another character who is almost the focal point of the film in a Dredd film that isn't Judge Dredd, because he is pretty one note as a character.
You mentioned Judge Death and
yes,
villains of the film. Who would you cast as the villain opposite Judge Dredd?
If you were doing Judge Death, and in all honesty, with my not so expensive knowledge of Judge Dredd, I would struggle to name another Judge Dredd bad guy. Presumably it would be a completely mocap performance. Can't see them doing it practically. If you look at pictures of the guy, he ain't really human. So you'd be down to a voice performance and a mocap actor. In an ideal world, your mocap would of course be Andy Serkis.
Hey.
Or potentially, if you did it practically, it'd be Doug Jones. Apparently, but this has been apparently for a long time, there is a TV series in the works called Mega City 1. So maybe we will get some more Dredd, and maybe it will be Carl Urban. But who knows? Who knows what the future holds? The only thing I know.
Amazon series in the making, possibly.
It does.
Yeah. Low budget. Yeah, well, Carl Urban loves an Amazon series, man.
Get him on loan from the boys, and boom, sorted.
Yeah, so that's my idea for a sequel or maybe prequel to Dredd. If you like it, let me know what you think. If you hate me, keep it to yourself.
I'm going for a spiritual sequel. So it's to a set of films by a bloke called Richard Linklater.
Represent.
He is an American film director. Dazed and Confused and Everybody Wants Some. These are two films that are, as he says, basically spiritual. You've got the spiritual sequel. What happens in these films? So in Dazed and Confused, which is set in 1976, and I believe it's the final day of school. It's just about a group of kids wanting to go out and have fun, have a party on the final day of school. And then Everybody Wants Some. It's set over a weekend, and it's about a group of baseball guys just drinking the whole weekend and partying. So yeah, there's not a lot to these films.
Importantly, Noah, they're about to start college, so it takes place immediately after, in effect, the end of Dazed and Confused.
It's really good though. It's really funny. Lots of good characters. And I'd like to see another one. Another Linklater one. It has to be Linklater. It can't be anyone else. What year do we want it? Do we want it in the 90s? Does it have to be in the 90s? Could it be beforehand? Because I remember seeing that he is doing another one of these, but it's going to be in the 60s, but I can't actually find it. So it could be any era, really. It doesn't have to be a few years after 1980 where Everybody Wants Some was set. It can be whenever.
If they were to do something like this, they definitely have to do the 90s, because it's all about the 30-year cycle, where for Back to the Future, you had the 1980s was where it was set, but it was about the 1950s, which is 30 years prior. And a lot of media nowadays uses that bait of nostalgia from 30 years ago to hook those audiences from back then, which is why you're getting a lot of reboots of like 80s films and then 90s films coming up. They're doing another Matrix film. They're doing another Space Jam. That's kind of what I'm getting at. The 90s, I think, would be the logical step.
You're dead right. Well, it's logical, though, because with the 30-year gap, let's say this main film's target audience is probably people in their 30s. The 90s is now nostalgic to those people because it's when they grew up. I will say, though, I think Everybody Wants Some more than Dazed and Confused does have this sort of timeless quality, though, because although it is to this backdrop of the 80s, it's probably the same with Dazed and Confused, to be fair, it's so universally appealing in its themes and its experiences that we all go through. They just feel timeless. Amazing films, both of them.
Well, at the time of like Dazed and Confused, they weren't all sort of stars, were they?
None of them were, no.
So if in the sequel it will all have to be young and upcoming actors, it can't be anyone you will instantly recognise at all. Dazed and Confused, when it came out, it had Ben Affleck in, Matthew McConaughey, Adam Goldberg.
Mila Jovovich.
Yeah, she's not really a star though, is she?
Yeah, she's pretty big.
Okay. And then you got Everybody Wants Some, who I can't even tell you any of the people in it. Zoe Deutsch, she's the ginger girl. The guy from Black Mirror.
It's Wyatt Russell. It's Kurt Russell's son.
Oh,
Yes.
Wyatt Russell, yeah.
Who's now massive because of Marvel. A lot of them have gone into TV. Some of them have had okay careers. One of the guys has had a couple of the guys have had good careers.
One thing that is universal, Linklater knows how to do dialogue. Hang on, kids. We've got kids is basically what it would be.
Kids?
Kids, the film.
Oh, the film Kids. Oh, okay.
I've not heard of it.
Me neither.
Are you joking?
No.
What's it?
What, Jimmy? It'd be like your favourite film if you watched it.
I like the
It was
album Kids by MGM.
Rosario Dawson was in it. That was it.
1995 coming of age drama, directed by Larry Clark, and written by Harmony Korine. You know, the guy that did Spring Breakers. So that is my sequel that I want to see. Pretty realistic that it's going to happen one day because Linklater's got probably nothing else to do. But yeah, we spoke about it a lot, so that just tells you there's so many like avenues you can go down with this. So yeah, as long as it's Linklater is my only request.
We've had direct sequels, we've had spiritual sequels, and now we're doing a crossover sequel, people.
What? You're breaking the rules.
Not breaking the rules, because this was actually planned. In Dire Straits 2014, Sony Pictures was hacked. Dun dun dun.
Oh yes.
Bunch of files got released, and I think it was all to do with like the interview film with Seth Rogen. That was a big thing. In amongst all those files and amongst all those emails was a plan, if you would, for a sequel to the ever popular franchise 21 Jump Street. They just had 22 Jump Street, which was proving very popular, and capitalize on success of that. Then we're going to do another film. But as the credits of that film show, doing a sequel to 22 Jump Street is kind of pointless because they're making the fun of the fact that they're doing a sequel. So where do you go from there? And Sony, with their big money hat on, went, let's combine franchises. So the plan was to do 23 Jump Street and Men in Black merged together. And when I first saw this headline come up, it was my most anticipated film ever, because Men in Black and 21 Jump Street are two of my favorite comedies of all time. And I think the combination of the two would be so much fun. Like, I don't really care about how they go about doing it. Just the concept of 21 Jump Street, but with aliens now, is just so funny.
So what? The aliens are dealing drugs.
Yeah, but you could do something as stupid as that and it would work. That's why I'd love to see it. 22 Jump Street opened the door for much more ridiculous scenarios and way more meta humor in the first. Like, I personally prefer 21 Jump Street to 22, but 22 does have some funnier bits in it. The best way to do it, if they were going to do it, would be less a sequel to Men in Black and more of a sequel to 21 Jump Street. So it would just be 23 Jump Street would just be Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill in that universe, rather than folding in, now Will Smith is here, now Tommy Lee Jones is here, because I feel like that would get a bit too much. It would get a bit overstuffed. And I think like you could kind of take the focus off of the main two characters once you get someone like Will Smith in, who basically just commands the screen whatever he's in.
True.
I'm like, I don't mind if they show it for cameos or something. That would be fun. Like right at the end, Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones turn up, but just keep the focus on Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill doing weird stuff with aliens, and I'll be there. Because originally it was supposed to be written by Lord and Miller, who did the first two films, so immediately sold there. But they weren't going to direct it like they did the previous two. They were going to get James Bobbin. He did like the Muppets movies, like the one from 2011, which, I mean, I quite like those Muppet movies, and I think tonally he's well up for it. But of course, as with all great ideas, the project fell through and it didn't take off. And instead we got Men in Black International, which is a big piece of shit. So one last point before I open it up. Amongst the many reasons why it was cancelled, other than like not like schedules lining up and all that jazz, apparently the difference in tone was what kind of made it crumble down, because 21 Jump Street is a very vulgar and not very family friendly movie, and Men in Black, well, not necessarily family friendly, is more catered towards that audience. So kind of combining the two wouldn't work from like a marketing perspective. But I think it would have worked, and I'm very sad that it hasn't happened, and I really want it to happen still.
I definitely think there's an audience for it, because I think those two audiences are quite similar with the like sort of adult who it's not quite Men in Black, whilst as you were saying a bit more family friendly, it's still got that humor element to it, and I think it could work really well. I think there's plenty, as we've discussed with all of them, there's plenty of avenues where you could take it down different routes as well. I think like obviously the key thing in 21 in the Jump Street franchise is the drug dealing, and I think, you know, bringing some aliens in, that
alien drugs,
it would be funny, wouldn't it?
It itself, how can you not think this is a great idea? How can you shelve something like this?
And like, can you imagine like Will Smith turning up?
No, it's to me, Noah.
And Will Smith turning up and having to deal with like Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum, and then it's Will Smith introducing them to the Men in Black lifestyle. We see them in tuxedos, and it could be interesting.
Yeah, I think what you could definitely take like characters from the previous films and be like, oh, they were aliens the entire time. And you could bring Straight Outta Compton guy, what's his name? I'm sorry.
Oh, Ice Cube.
Ice Cube, yeah. I almost said Ice-T, but that's not him.
That's another guy.
Yeah, but
It's an Ice-T.
Ice Cube as the new head of the Men in Black. That'd be great, because he was the best part of the second film.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
The idea of
it is going to work.
The idea of Jonah Hill dressed in the Men in Black suit is
sorry.
Okay, why do you think it's not going to work now?
That is the big question.
Well, okay, it might work in the sense that people probably, but it would just be stupid, I reckon. Because then you start having all of these like Ghostbusters and the Predator, or like Terminator and Schindler's List. It's going to be stupid.
Terminator and Schindler's List.
I think
Oscar Schindler, you want to be dominated.
I think it would work in the same way as like way back when they did like Abbott and Costello, like, and they did like the Meets the Wolfman, Meets Frankenstein. In that sort of vein, putting Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill together with their chemistry just like explodes just in any scenario, which is why the credit sequence of 22 Jump Street is so funny, because it shows you can literally put them in anything and you'd be like, I want to watch that.
Yeah, it will make a load of money, this, but I think it's a bit of a stupid concept, really.
Well, 21 Jump Street in concept is a stupid idea.
Yeah, and that's what's funny.
Point out that it's a stupid idea, and that's why it's funny. So why not go all the way with it? I think.
Yeah, I'm down.
I'm interested.
Yeah. All I'll say is, any producers at Sony watching, pick it back up, please.
Yeah, if you need a writer, James is a writer.
I'll give it to Lord and Miller. They know what they're doing. I don't.
Lord Miller and James.
And me. Just have me in the room.
That'd be great. You just watch you, just like, I'm just here to watch, guys.
I just want to make sure you make the movie.
You do this right, okay?
Yeah, so we've all pitched something slightly different. Let us know if you have any sequels you're dying to see and they never came out, or whatever you think of our sequels would be interesting to hear. But we're just four struggling filmmakers, so what do we know, really? We're going to wrap this episode up here. We're going to trial having the game come out on a Wednesday, so subscribe for that extra content. Give us a like to let us know you enjoyed what we're doing and support the channel. And if you fancy it, give us a little comment. But on that case, we'll see you on Wednesday for the game episode and next week for our next episode. Thank you very much. We're going to continue to struggle. You guys continue to stay safe. We'll catch you in the next one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
No, what the hell are you people on about? I am right.